Welcome to House Masters, presented by Home Projects. I'm Steve, and as always, I'm joined here with John. Before we get into the 15 most common home improvement myths, we'd like you to subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow along with our podcast wherever you happen to be listening to this podcast. Hit like, hit the star, leave a comment, share it with the world. We'll go into a little bit more information at the end why that's important to us. But this is supposed to be an organic discussion with you, the listeners, and we're hoping that you will join John and I in the discussion. If you hear something that we're about ready to say that you like or something that you challenge us on, please send us a note. If you don't want to do it via YouTube or in the podcast software, go to our website, homeprojects.com, send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. And last but not least, we ask that you make a donation to our cause if you're able to. Again, you go to our website. There's a donate button on the navigation at the top of the page, and you can use GoFundMe or PayPal and send us a donation if you're getting some value out of what it is we are doing here. And we hope you're getting some value out of this. So, John, we are here to talk about the top 15 common home improvement myths, and we are actually going to do a series of videos here, a 3 series, try the trifecta of home improvement myths, 5 at a time, and we'll publish these in order. So when we get to the end of this episode, hopefully YouTube or your podcasting software simply roll to the next video. But this will allow us to shorten the length of the videos a little bit and hopefully give you guys a chance to take a break in the middle. But we're going to go from 15 all the way down to 1 with the grand finale at the end. And at grand finale, it will be. So, John, you want to get us cranked off here? First one, the number 15 is small changes in the scope of work are easy and inexpensive. Number 1, the top 15 starts with that one. That's a biggie. What do you think about that?
It's a biggie to a contractor.
Yes.
It doesn't seem in the contractor-homeowner relationship that it's as much of a biggie to a homeowner. And the reason for that is the fact that they don't understand the process of how to plan a particular project.
Correct.
And why the trades are set chronologically the way they are, and why this is done before this is done, and so on and so forth. And what happens is you get into the process and you get moving along, and you get on somewhat of a rhythm, and then all of a sudden, homeowner comes home one afternoon from work and they say, I don't like that wall there. Is there any way that we can move that wall back?
It's just a small change.
It's only 18 inches. And it's like, that 18 inches is going to cost you about 18 grand.
$1,000 an inch, yeah.
But why? I don't understand. All it is a wall. Well, I have to call off my sub that's coming tomorrow to put the floors in because now the wall's being moved. I have to call the framer back that's now on another job site to reframe the wall. And now I'm also going to have to bring in my drywall sub to re-drywall the wall. And the second portion that you don't, as a homeowner, quite understand is the fact that I now have to pay those subs twice. Because they're not going to give me a discount just by virtue of the fact that, I gave them a 2-for-1. They're going to charge me what they charge me normally for that particular project. So what ends up happening in this type of case, and there are obviously small differences or small changes that are made, like a painter comes in, paints the master bedroom coastal gray, and it's like, well, coastal gray doesn't really look like the little square I bought at Sherwin-Williams, or square I got at Sherwin-Williams. Can we change the paint? Yeah, sure, we can change the paint.
Not a big deal.
That doesn't change the fact that I have to get the painter out there to paint a second time. He's going to charge me a second time, and it upsets the rhythm. But those things happen in the construction arena. The thing that you have to understand is from a contractor's perspective, that's a change order. Okay. And any professional contractor worth his weight who does a change order is going to put everything in writing. They're going to put not only the product or the service that was provided, but what the product or service is changing to, and the specifications related to that new change.
Yep.
And then what they're going to do is they're going to more than likely request payment on the spot.
Yes. In advance, in full, no refunds.
In advance, in full. And the reason for that is otherwise you could just pile up a bunch of change orders left and right. The job completion date keeps, inching out. He's having to put off his other clients after you, and he never ends up getting paid because you keep putting in change orders. So there's a reason. It's easy from a trade's perspective to be able to do these types of things a lot of times. Sometimes it's not. Most of the time it is, but it doesn't change the idea that we have to completely upset the apple cart and start over from scratch. So that's why it's a major myth and a big misnomer in the home improvement industry.
Yeah, and further down the list there'll be another myth that feeds into this, but what do they say? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Planning ahead and making sure mistakes like that don't happen is also, part of the plan too. If you can avoid that. Now, obviously, you get walls up, you get things up. You can't see something until it's in real life, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. And things have to move, and if a change order for $10,000 to move the wall 18 inches makes that space worth living in for the next 30 years, then that's a great investment. But you as the homeowner have to understand it's not a small change. Scope of work does change. It has a cascading effect, and it's not inexpensive.
And let me also say real quick, Steve, before we go on to the next one.
Yep.
There's a lot of people, especially homeowners, because they're not in the arena every day, that don't have the gift of visioning things conceptually.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have that gift from the standpoint that we've been in homes our entire life. But there's even builders and remodelers that can't conceptually see something until it's actually built in front of them. That's just certain brains work different ways. And we understand that. And that's why, a change order in the process is an acceptable mode of the process.
Correct.
But you just have to understand that while it's acceptable, there are consequences that are attached behind it that you need to be understanding of. So,
absolutely. All right. On to number 14 of the most common home improvement myths. Speaking of expensive, the myth is more expensive is always better. And this can be true, but more than likely, more expensive does not mean always better. Elaborate on that.
Before I elaborate, I also want to notate that this is going to somewhat contradict what we're going to go into next.
Number 13?
Number 13. But we'll explain that as we move along. Expensive being always better is more geared to not necessarily the contractor, but usually the material that's being used on the job site.
Correct.
Let's say, for instance, let's talk about bathroom finishes or kitchen finishes. Your faucets, say, a faucet like a Price Fister or a Delta is going to be more expensive than, say, Hampton Bay at Home Depot. But the style of Hampton Bay might fit your needs better than the options that are available with Price Fister or Delta.
Correct.
The sprayer might work differently, or it might have a certain feature on the type of spray that comes out of the hand sprayer. It could be a number of different things. Take windows, for instance. You've got a lot of expensive windows out there. You know, your Andersons, your Pellas, your Marvins, Colbys. Um, Gosh, I mean, there's a number of them out there. You know, those are all wood clad products. But there's some wood clad products out there that don't put, you know, millions of dollars in marketing and advertising. And you know, when they put those millions of dollars into marketing and advertising, just like the faucet names that we mentioned earlier,
Price goes up.
that's a cost of goods
Hmm.
that they have to profit off of. So, you know, coming from the building material side of the business, like I did starting out in my career, there's a lot of non-known brand names out there that are just as good as the big names.
Absolutely.
Decking, you know, you got Trex. Everybody calls it Trex. Trex is kind of like the Kleenex of the tissue market, of the deck market. Um, you know,
The
people don't say,
Velcro.
"Hey, give me that box of Puffs."
Right.
They say, "Give me a box of Kleenex."
Right.
They do the same thing in the decking world, you know, with Trex. There's a lot of other products out there that are equally as good as Trex, if not better.
Yeah. People say,
So,
I want Trex like.
exactly.
You know, it becomes a noun, turns into an adjective, and there's several other products out there that are actually better than Trex, in my opinion, that don't have the price tag. They're easier to install. They're more sustainable, better warranty, more colors, easier to work with, and cheaper, frankly. So,
Yeah, often the brand becomes synonymous with the actual product that's being put down.
yeah.
So in other words, Trex, what you said, becomes synonymous with composite decking.
Yep.
You know, so you know, just keep that in mind when you're trying to budget for particular products. Try to look at your needs first as opposed to your wants, and definitely don't try to keep up with the Joneses just because it has a brand attached to it. In some cases, I mean, a brand does mean something,
It does.
but
It
your
does.
research, I mean, yeah, I mean, you take, for instance, like a lock set, Baldwin, you can't go wrong with a Baldwin
Yep.
lock set.
The guts are good.
Impact, Schlage, I mean, there's a number of them. Yale is another good one. Um, but, just make sure that you're putting your priorities in the right spot.
So, speaking of the right spot, number 13 on the list, as we alluded to prior, is a contradiction to number 14, and it is cheaper is always better. This is probably the biggest, the last five on the list, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the contradiction here is, when we were speaking in the last one, the more expensive is always better. That was geared more towards material cost usually. This one, cheaper is always better, is geared more towards the contractor that you're
Service
hiring.
provider. Yep.
Okay, it's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic that people always want to keep up with the Joneses when it comes to tangible products. But they don't want to keep up with the Joneses when it comes to being intelligent with the contractor that they hire. We had a previous episode that where we were talking about somebody getting three bids,
Yep.
and one of the contractors was $20,000, another was $22,000, and the other one came in at 12.5. There's actually a large element of the population that would go and hire that 12.5 contractor, not understanding the fact that at the end of the job, if the end of the job ever gets there, you might end up paying 2 and 3 times that 12.5 when you could have just paid 20 or 22 and been done with it.
Yep.
And been properly protected with a warranty in lieu of a taillight warranty that Buck and his truck gave you at 12.5. So, part of what our value is at home, our house masters, is we want to create an understanding on both sides of the equation here. Obviously, we're trying to raise the professional level of the contractor side, but we're also in the same breath trying to raise the knowledge level of the homeowner side. And allow you as a homeowner to understand what goes into the costs of a particular project. If you see in a situation like that 2022 and 12.5, somebody's missed something,
Yeah.
and it's not the 20 and the 22 guy. They've missed either insurance they don't have. They missed a week's worth of labor that they didn't account for. They mismeasured their product. And I will even go so far as to say that it could have been intentional.
Mm-hmm.
A lot
Absolutely.
of these low bids that you see that are drastically lower than the rest of the market are done on purpose to get you under contract so they can turn around and do a change order. What ends up happening is on a Friday afternoon, they come to you and say, Mrs. Jones, you know, we just found out that we missed 14 squares of decking, and we mismeasured the product. So we need more money. Well, then you're in between a rock and a hard place. Here you got a half of a deck built.
You're pregnant.
The composite decking that you bought was bought with a specific lot number attached to it. If you hire another contractor, he might buy from another supplier, which buys it from another distributor, and it's a completely different lot number, but it's the same color, but it's still not going to match when it gets on the job site. So you have a number of different challenges in a situation like that, and a lot of these jacklegs understand that those are challenges, and they're putting you in between a rock and a hard place.
They're leveraging that.
Say again, I'm sorry, Steve.
They're leveraging they're leveraging their ability
Your
to
ignorance.
change order you up.
Yes, they're leveraging your ignorance.
Yes.
And that's not always the case. I'm just telling you that there are contractors out there that will do that, and you got to watch out for it. But I'm not a big proponent of getting 3 bids for everything. I think that's kind of ridiculous. I've always lived by the notion that if a contractor comes in my home, I'm able to develop a decent relationship with him. I can tell right off the bat that he and we communicate well. We're speaking on the same level, and he's providing a service that matches or exceeds what I'm actually seeking. I'm gonna hire the guy.
Yeah.
If his price is reasonable, I'm gonna hire the guy. I don't need 2 other people to keep him honest.
No, you're actually right. And I at this point in time, I'd reference a video we've already published about contracts, and we actually went into a bit about that. I encourage our listeners, our viewers, to go check out the Contracts for Homeowners 101 series, where we talk a bit about that and how the contract that you agree to could impact the cost of the work and how honest your contractor will be with you on those. And you can avoid this myth that cheapest is always better. Yeah. Number 12. So this is this is goody. Everyone has a TV in their room, and they all love sitting down and watching HGTV. And this pertains to that. So number 12 is remodeling projects can be completed inside of 30 minutes. The magic 30-minute episode. It's actually probably more like 20 minutes after you factor in commercials, John.
Yeah, actually it is. And there are no hiccups on the job site.
Nope.
Everybody who's on a job at the time they're scheduled to be.
Yep.
At 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
There's no snafus when it comes to different product choices or sizes or anything like that picked. Everything is just A-OK, 100% perfect. And these particular shows, while they have value in terms of creating ideas from a design standpoint, from a color palette standpoint, from a number of different arenas in the construction business, they've done a major disservice to the industry, because what they've done is they've created a scenario where the contractor is up against a clock, and they shouldn't be.
Right.
They should go at their own pace, at the pace that's going to provide a perfect product at the end of the job. And I don't know how many times homeowners said, well, I need you in here on Thursday, and it needs to be done by Monday. and you can't work on the weekends.
And you can't start before 9, and you have to be gone by 4.
Yeah, either that or you can't be in the house when nobody's at the house. You have to
Right.
work at night.
Right.
I've gotten that too. Um, so no, these projects they last what they last. If you're in a full remodel where you're getting electrical and plumbing and HVAC and those types of things
You have inspections.
altered in your home, that adds time to the project because you're dealing with inspections. Um, you might deal with the actual failure of an inspection, or you might deal with a pain in the rear end inspector from your county or city. There's a number of different things that go awry in a remodeling project that you just need to be aware of. So,
And I'll also extend this. We're alluding to television here, HGTV, and all. Discovery Channel has several of these too. Also applies to social media, Instagram, Facebook. House is a big one, where people post these pictures of the before and after of a project with no explanation of the pure hell they went through between those two photographs. So you need to be aware that the camera can hide a lot of things. All right, and then the last one in this series is number 11 of 15, and John, you're going to have to explain this one a little bit more because we've actually touched on this in other episodes. But the myth is my house needs to breathe. I need my house to breathe, to puff. It needs to ventilate.
to a certain extent, that's true, but not to the extent that most people think. Most people think that you have to huff and that house needs to huff and puff and blow itself over. That is not the case. The difference in what we're talking about here is an uncontrollable breath where the house is ventilating uncontrollably through penetrations and gaps and crevices and everything else that are just present just by virtue of the way a house is constructed and the way a house is settled over the years versus providing a controlled ventilation system that works in unison with your HVAC system to controllably ventilate the house and allow it to breathe.
Correct.
So we want a minimum breath of that house, but the breath that we want needs to be controllable to make it so it can be the most healthy home to live in, as well as the most energy efficient home to live in.
Yeah.
So there are two completely different schools of thought there. The old school of thought was, yeah, it needs to breathe like a split rail fence. That's not the case. And the changes in thought have really, it's only been the last 15 to 20 years, really, where that dichotomy has changed big time.
And a lot
of it's gone 180 degrees from what it used to be.
A lot of that has to do with building code, indoor air quality. As the green movement has evolved in this country and has shown up in the International Building Code, building sciences have impacted the indoor air quality codes, and modern air conditioning systems are required to provide makeup air. That's a technical term that homeowners should know and understand, especially if they're going to replace a HVAC system. Makeup air is air that's intentionally brought into the house, heated and cooled, and used to supplement airflow inside the home. So that as your air in your house circulates, it's replacing that air with fresh air. That's the makeup air it's using. And then if you have an exhaust hood, a lot of homes now have these enormous exhaust hoods over their ranges for exhaust and cooking fumes. And that is putting a constant negative pressure in your house. When you turn that fan on, it's just like the exhaust fan in your bathroom. It blows air outside. Well, that inherently takes air out of the house and puts it under negative pressure. Well, guess where the house is going to try to make that air up? From the outside. It's going to try to suck it in through those cracks and crevices that you mentioned. So fume hoods are generally are designed to bring in their own air. Again, makeup air or fresh air. They're usually not conditioned in that case. But those are all mechanized systems with science behind them, building science, to make sure the air in your house is healthy. Reduces mold and mildew, which are the same thing. Airborne contaminants, has a function of what your air filters are. But your house does need to breathe. It just has to be engineered to breathe correctly. That good enough?
I believe you.
Okay.
I believe you, man.
All right.
Preach,
So
preach, brother.
preach, brother. So we're going to take a break here at the end of this top 5 here, and we're going to terminate this video and hopefully roll you into the next one. But if you're not sticking around for the next 5 myths in the series, we ask that you like this video, subscribe to our channel. If you're on podcast, please give us a comment, subscribe to that as well. And again, hit us up on socials if you got any questions or if there's any other myths you would like us to discuss. This is all a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's also serious at the same time. So hopefully we'll see you in just a couple minutes. If not, look for you on the next time. Thank you. Peace.